Sarah Thomas, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, Derek, thank you so much for having me back. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. And today is such an amazing day for me because I get to talk to both of my favorite spiritual mentors and teachers, of which I consider you one of my favorites. And you were on the show a couple years ago, and I've gone through several of your trainings since then. And actually, you might be interested in this. You have a course in our last interview. You brought the idea of elixirs into the conversation. I was like, whoa, that's so cool. So since then, I've been exploring making a lot of custom elixirs for people and then also freezing the waters of the elixirs using Veda Austin's method, uh, crystallography. And you can perceive images and patterns and signs in the ice. So it's really cool to see like what each elixir is showing in the frozen water crystallography. So I'm curious if your thinking around elixirs has evolved since that last conversation, or how often you're using or making elixirs.
Well, first of all, that's amazing. That's so cool that you were freezing the water and working with the water like that. Are you getting images that you're able to see?
Yeah, when I share them, especially if it's like a personalized elixir and I share the images with the person, they often will say like, "Oh my gosh, bushels of like there's a one that's looked like a bushel of wheat," and they're like, "That's been showing up for me a lot in the last week." So it's like mirroring some symbol that they're working with, or there'll be like something that looks like a pair of dragonfly wings, and like, "Oh my gosh, that's my spirit animal." It is really cool to see that there is. I feel like that's confirmation that it's accurately personalized to that person.
That is awesome. That's something I've never done before, although I love her books and the Emoto work, and I'm glad you've taken it to another level. I know one of my students, colleagues in Pennsylvania freezes her elixirs and is doing what I feel like is fifth dimensional work with them because it's the kind of thing where the person will take the elixir and then be like, actually, that whole process was starting to unfold before I even took it. And the elixir was like the confirmation. It's like they're almost working outside of linear time. And I think when you work with that, like freezing the water and just elevating it up, because I feel like what you're doing when you do that is inviting extra dimensional divine beings, metaphysical processes and frequencies to interact with it even more. And that's part of the ritual. When you're saying, encode this, like work with me, working in alliance with the the mystery, like that is the definition of craft. And to bringing it, just elevating it to a higher level is, so I feel like that's part of what you're doing when you freeze the water like that. It's just another layer of sacredness. So I have not done that yet. That's amazing. For me, working with elixirs, how has that changed or evolved? Gosh, what I've been doing lately, Derek, is that when I go within, and there's different ways that I enter the field, it's like there'll be meditation or ritual and many forms of meditation and ritual and ceremony of different kinds. And then also my dream world. Um, I've been working with the Amanita mushroom to just enhance dreaming. And when I get a dream or encounter stones in those other worlds, then I'll make an elixir from the stone as my response to like, okay, you came to me and this was the interaction we had. So now, and I'll write it on my to-do list, like make sure to take that elixir so that I remember all the processes. And then I'll take the elixir as like my call back. And then I watch the processes unfold, which is my latest one is orpiment that I've been working with that first came in an experience that I was having. And then I started taking the orpiment elixir, and deep processes are happening that I am still weaving together the information from within. But it to me, it's like, this is the joy. It's like opening the codes inside of me. It's a big part of the joy of stone medicine for me.
That's amazing. That's and I haven't really encountered anyone that I know working with Amanita. Those are the red, the Super Mario mushrooms, right?
Yeah, I like
How do
that. Actually,
you
I haven't heard that before.
How do you prepare those? What's that process like to actually use the mushroom?
You can just buy a tincture, an Amanita tincture,
Mm.
and I don't know what this reveals if I'm a lightweight or sensitive or whatever, but I just take 7 drops before bed because if I take any more than that, I feel like I'm on kind of like a mushroom journey in my sleep, and I don't really wanna mix mushroom journey with being asleep. Um, I just like when it opens the veil a little bit, like, just the other night, I was, I've been interacting with this land space, like, kind of meeting a new land space friend, and I went to sleep with the Amanita, and the veil is lifted just enough that I was able to see a couple of the beings that are, like, living on that land and why I had felt like I was being watched, and there were specifically 2 beings, and so the Amanita, I feel like, helps me have, those between world experiences, like, I'm in between the worlds and the veil is lifted in bed at night, but not, like, having a full-blown mushroom experience in bed at night because that would be too much for me. But another way that you can prepare it besides tinctures, they actually make Amanita slurries. And slurry is a funny word, I love that, but you can buy Amanita slurries, which are they basically just cook down the mushrooms in water, and then it looks like this pouch of, like, tan juice that you
Hmm.
buy, and you can drink, like, a shot of that or a small glass of that, and so the last time I did that, I was, um it's like full GABA and full dopamine, like, oh my god, I felt so grounded and so at peace and grounded, and then, you may have a little bit of a mushroom experience on that too, though, because then all the nature just started, like, waving at me. You know how they'd be like, "Hello, we're here." I don't know if we got into mushrooms right away, but those are 2 ways that you can, work with Amanita. Nice.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's a great mix with stone medicine.
Very cool. Yeah, I have used Blue Lotus for dream work in the past, and that seems to work pretty well. There's also these like lucid dreaming stacks, different. You could take a pill before bed and then a pill in the middle of the night, and it will enhance the lucid dreaming if you're doing that. So
Wow.
it's yeah, I love to experiment. So I'm always curious, like what people are uh, also experimenting with.
Me too, me too. My one friend is a huge biohacker of her own body, especially spiritual, and so I get a lot of these ideas from her, as far as in the plant and mushroom world.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, okay. This is when I interviewed you last time. I remember all the questions starting to stack up in my mind. But you mentioned like starting to work with a new land space, and there were a couple of beings there. What does that mean? Starting to work with a new land space?
Well, I have been visiting this land, up at the Black Mountains, and the Black Mountains is the Mount Mitchell chain that runs and the caboose of it is Mount Silo, and for people that don't live on the East Coast, they may not know that these are the highest mountains east of the Mississippi. They don't really compare in height to mountains in Colorado, etcetera, but they're our biggest mountains, and there's a land, right at the base of that where a friend of mine lives, and there's this beautiful creek going through it, and this place is like my playground. I love Mount Silo. I love this area. Um, and so I've been kind of going there and cutting through in these trails and finding some of the waterways and spending more time there, I guess, just spending more time there, and I don't know how weird you want me to be, but I will tell you, the I am very aware of the Bigfoot. Maybe I think people know this
Mm.
about me, but I'm aware of that, and so in, like, the inner true dream space, it was showing me that there's 2 of them in that area.
Ah,
It's
yeah.
more
We have
specific.
quite a lot around here apparently as well in St. Louis. Um, people, there's a conference that's been happening, and they always go to the Cahokia Mound site, which is a huge Earth pyramid on the final day, and they will often get a Bigfoot interaction there
Wow.
as a group, which is cool because it's kind of out in the open. It's not like in the woods.
That is so cool. I'm not surprised at all that St. Louis has that going on.
Oh, I was kind
Surprised.
of surprised because I think of St. Louis as we live in the city, and it's a very sort of dense and chaotic place. It feels like, um, with obviously that sacred site Cahokia across the river, and the river is here. Um, but yeah, maybe you know something about St. Louis that I don't.
Honestly, you were the person that made me see it in a new way because you were telling me there's actually mounds and there's like a big grid place. And so I started to look into it more after talking to you, which was now a couple years
Mm.
ago. But I
Mhm.
now, I've seen interesting videos and things about St. Louis, like the deeper side of it. So that's why I'm not surprised. You're the one who helped me see.
Well, I was also because we had talked about land healing, and I have done this like long-term project going to all the major confluence points of the Mississippi River Valley, the Missouri River, the Illinois River, the Ohio River, which covers like 2/3 of the landmass watershed. And um, it's really interesting because, okay, this ties into one of the things I wanted to make sure to ask you about because I go out there and I host these, hold these ceremonies. Like my first thought several years ago was like, I'm going to help heal the rivers, but I realized that's sort of um, a Western, like I'm going to come in and fix things, sort of approach. And your technique of blowing into the stone and asking it, like, how can I help? How can I be involved? Is really nice because it feels like more of a collaborative approach. But I still get out there and I'm like not really sure what to do. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bring forth my intention for this to, for the rivers to be pure and to hold a peaceful vibration for all the people around and all of these things. But my question is, sometimes I feel like my prayer or my intention is a little weak or mushy, or I can't like focus it clear enough. How do you, because I know both crystals and water respond to intention. How do you have a really good prayer, or what makes a good intention to work with crystals?
Yeah, I love that I'm just witnessing your walk, how like honestly and authentically you're just walking through this without answers, but with questions. And I feel like that's one of the ways that you've refined in the past couple of years as you tell your story, like that you've been less about knowing what needs to be done and more about the questions that you're holding. Like even this question, like, how do I come up with a more clarified or clear prayer? I feel like your journey has turned into a journey of questions. And that is good. I think that's really wonderful. It just is so human, really, and honest. As far as gaining clear prayer, gosh, work in progress, I'm thinking how the questions are given. We talk about staying behind the medicine. So you're just in the I don't know until you're given the next step and you stay behind the medicine. Meaning you don't go ahead because you don't know, and you stay behind the medicine until you're given the next step. And my mentor, Jyoti, is the one who really conveyed this concept to me from all the indigenous old ways teachings that she works from. And she talks about having being the head of a very important community, doing very important work in California. And as like the elder kind of leader of that community, there was a point where she had to make a decision and everybody left it to her to make the decision. And she took 2 years to make the decision because she asked in every meeting they'd come together and she'd say, Spirit still hasn't told me. Spirit still hasn't told me. And everyone would be like, oh my gosh, we have to move on this. Like we're trying to, it was something about protecting some land, I think. And she kept saying, Spirit just hasn't told me. And 2 years of just waiting for the next step is like what she conveyed to me through that story was the importance of patience. Like, what if we don't know the prayer? What if we don't know the clear prayer for a while? Partly that's staying behind the medicine. I'm trying to think of times like, I think patience is such an important part of this journey and walk and just being in these places that we don't know. And I'm just trying to think of time. Like, there was a time recently when the prayer dropped in so clearly for me. Like I knew exactly the prayer and it was so simple. And I often find that too, like with clarity comes the simplicity. And
Mm.
I was at the river recently and sitting with a couple of friends doing a small offering, small ceremony, just dropping into prayer. And the first prayer that I made was just offering to the river, just thank you. Thank you to the river, which has gone through so much here. And just being in that moment, the second prayer just dropped in. And the second prayer was just help me to be in my heart. I find that that's the simple prayer that I come back to a lot, or that is given to me. Just let me be in my heart, help me to be in my heart. And that's it. And I don't know exactly what the alchemy was that made it so clear what my prayer would be in that moment. Except the fact that I was sitting with that river, just watching it go by, and I was just being present. And maybe that is what helped the prayer come so clear. That's another good medicine question, though. Like, what creates a clear prayer? Something for us to walk with, and all your listeners to be like, what does create a clear prayer?
Thanks for sharing that story about your mentor and 2 years. Patience is something that I've had a hard time, like, expanding my tolerance for things to like, solutions to present themselves or situations to resolve or any of those things. So, yeah, um, one of my mentors always says, like, when the problem is created, the solution is already also created. And, linear time is just sort of it's a funny thing that, like, but they're both already there. So you don't have to worry. You just have to, like, chew the meal in order to get there.
Yeah, I've heard that before too, and I love that sentiment that any problem, the solution is already created. Yeah, patience is when I was in Peru too, we were working with, just learning from wonderful shaman out there. And one of them was just so in his heart, just smiling. Like, you couldn't get him to stop smiling even in a hard situation. And at the very end, he finally spoke English. Or he finally told us something in the last moment of the journey. And he was, getting translation, but he basically said, if you're going to walk the path of the earth, the number one virtue is patience, because everything's slow and steady. And so for that to be the one thing he said at the very end, I was like, I really took that in,
Mm.
Yes.
You briefly mentioned the flood there, or the river, like, being through so much in Asheville, and I was just curious what your experience of that whole situation was.
That was just wild. We were here, and I was 3 nights before we had the event. I was up at night being like, how could it rain this hard for this long? Like, imagine the most battering, pounding rain, and being like 2 hours later, that level of rain is still happening outside. And that was 3 nights before. It was like 2, 3 nights this went on. So I like to watch Ryan Hall, y'all, which is like a YouTube
Mhm.
channel about weather.
Yeah, he tells us about our tornadoes coming through
Yes. Isn't he great? I don't
where
know
we
why
are.
I like it. But it's like I like to just have that on in the background. I think it's because my grandfather used to just listen to the transistor radio of all the all the policemen talking to each other and stuff in his art studio. But nonetheless, when we saw the hurricane coming up to Asheville on that radar, I already knew it was going to be really bad. And Caroline, my partner, was like, I was like, it's been raining this hard. And she said, okay, this is our last chance. Go fill up the bathtubs so that you can flush and that you have water and everything. And we were like, we're going to go get food one last time. And we went out in that rain, and it was crazy. Like, I am not a baby about rain and stuff, but I was like, we have to turn around. Like, we were skidding. It was so dangerous. We finally get to the grocery store. And let me tell you, everybody in the grocery store was so calm and had no idea what was going. Like, I remember the guys at the meat counter being like, yeah, they said there could be some flooding. And Caroline and I are going around grabbing like all these groceries. Like, we knew that we weren't going to have electricity and power. We're grabbing like stupid things like peanut butter and jelly and cookies and all this stuff you're not going to have to cook. And I remember standing in line. There's people behind us just grabbing like one Snickers. We had our whole thing full of water. So the guy checking us out was just do. And I'm sitting there thinking, everybody needs to go home. Everybody needs to go home now. Like, and the store was not going home. They were just slowly bagging groceries. So that night we finally got home. We went to bed, and I mean, there's a whole story of what happened to our house. We flooded, the basement flooded, all these
Oh, wow.
sirens were going off really early in the morning. We walked outside. Everything was like Mountain Dew. It was like the sky was green. The energy was like really hot, warm, electrical energy. I mean, we were like, the trees were falling everywhere. There was tornadoes. So we were like, we shouldn't be out here because trees are going to fall on us more. we had $30,000 worth of damage at our house, including trees falling and flooding. And just the weird thing about that was that nobody knew that was happening. And I knew. I don't know how I knew, but I was like, that was too much rain. And Ryan Hall, y'all is showing it, but there were so many people caught off guard by that. And we lost something like 41 million trees. The Coast Guard was here saying honestly, he said there's at least 2,000 people dead, but they're not reporting that. They've said there's about 200 people dead, but there were huge trucks with bodies down at the hospital. There's some secretive stuff going on around that, but the land needs cleanup and needs support energetically. And I'm thinking of doing a 1-year anniversary process where if you want to hear about my idea for like a little bit of support of the land energetically, do you want to hear that?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
I
So,
was listening to your podcast yesterday about the gold leaf around quartz points, because I think you had recorded that sort of like newly after the event.
oh yeah. Yeah. There's this process in Peru, and I don't know if it came from the Inca traditionally or just the Andean tradition, the mystical tradition, even more recently, but they do a process where every year they basically create like a grid, and it looks like a mandala because on 2 dimensions on paper, if they draw it out, it just looks like one point in the center with all these spokes around it in a mandala, but it represents all of the land. And they just come to the center of the land, wherever that is, and then they start drawing all this energy back through the grid lines. Like it looks like a big weaving. And as they draw the energy back in the ceremony, they're cleansing the land. So they're cleansing, as they call it, hucha, dense or heavy energy or anything that's ready to gently transmute or release. They draw that energy back to the center point, and it's kind of like raking in and releasing all of the hucha or the dense energy into a center point. And I've been contacting some friends to go to the power spots in these mountains. So I've been kind of like, to my ritualistic and medicine weaving friends, I've been like, what power spot do you want to go to? And we're going to have these 12 crystals, and you're each going to take one to one of the power spots. So people are kind of signing up for the power spots. And those 12 crystals, we'll do a process with them together first. So those 12 crystals understand their job. And then the friends will go, I'll place them at the power spot. So they're kind of like in big spokes around the wheel of the center. And then we'll do a ceremony at the center where we connect with all those crystals and just drag back together. Like it's like raking light through the whole area as a cleansing to help it cleanse dense energy and hucha. And then we kind of like release it and transmute it at our central fire, central ceremony. That is my idea right now for what we'll do for the 1-year anniversary.
Wow. That would be so incredible for everyone participating in that.
Well, they're
Yeah.
all excited to pick their spots and go to their spots. So we all were actually I was going to get 144 people, and we were going to go separate those into the spots and all hike to those spots. But I found that, some of the spots, a lot of people can't make it and we can't park, and I just can't get that big of a group out to all of those spots. So I thought, especially my one mentor lives in this amazing mountain, but it's too hard for people to hike, but she can go up there. So if I get just my little groups to plant the crystals, then everybody can just meet in the center and we can drag the energy back to that central ceremony.
Will each spot have a different type of crystal, or what are you choosing?
The idea right now is Arkansas quartz crystals, and I'm deciding if I want to because I see this group that's available. I'm deciding if I want to spend this much money on these crystals, and I might. We'll see. Or I'll go to something else. But I see these Arkansas quartz crystals that are these big natural points that I feel like would be good for this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool that you, though, because you have a crystal shop, so you have access to like all the right tools, right? It's like going over to your friend's house who's the woodworker, and he just like has the thing that you need to fix the cabinet door or whatever it is,
That's right.
Yeah.
I know the people that are directly digging the rocks and have a sacred relationship with that. And I know where the rocks are, which is good. I'm glad.
Do you, I know that you do some rock hounding in your area as well. Is that right? You like to go and find the local. That was one thing I picked up from you was like find the stones you like to work with that are from your neighborhood, or like as close as you can,
Yeah.
because they have a different frequency than like if you get um the Elmwood crystals, right? But they might not be that close to where you're from. Um, yeah, is there any that you particularly work with from your area?
Well, we just to kind of like mirror what you just said, we have some land up in Burnsville that we have not, like, the plan is to move there. It's raw land, so we don't have that set up yet. But what I do there is that's really close to the most beautiful quartz in the world, the most high quality quartz in the world, very close to spruce pine. And when you walk on that land, you see, I have found like transparent, smoky quartz crystals there, many, many beautiful quartz crystals, rock crystal. So what I'm doing there is just collecting those crystals from that land. And that will be, the central point and the grid crystals and everything. So it's true. I think that as much as we can gather from the place that we're in, it's just the way to do it. It's like shop local. All those energies have an understanding of the energies that are there. There's always going to be black rocks and white rocks. And it's like it's just the best place to start. And it makes sense. I haven't rock hounded for other rocks since about a year ago. I think it was last August. And we actually made those available in the crystal shop. There's a mine here that has a lot of beautiful mica. And I wanted my people that were about to take our certification course and study mica to have access to that natural mica that I rock hounded. And that's kind of going back to my roots because I feel like definite past life vibes with the role of the apprentice and, gathering the rocks and gathering the herbs and
Mm,
all of that as and then, bringing them back to the teacher who's cooking them and creating and learning from them. So walking through the creek looking for rocks and crystals feels like home to me, you know?
hmm.
Yeah. It's different.
It has also just reminded me, a couple of years ago, you had come to me in a dream and you were like, here's how to meditate with Unikite. You were like, put 4 quadrants up and sit in a Unikite grid. And so whenever hear of someone, like I had someone on my show just because I heard him saying that he was guided to make a Unikite grid. And I was like, oh, I should interview you. So it's because I know that's also from the local, it's like from the North Carolina area, I think,
We have that
as
here
well.
and stretching up to Maryland. Yeah, Virginia.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's kind of one of those stones that I was like had no awareness of before
Oh,
you mentioned it.
well, I hope you listened to that wise dream, Sarah. Who knows I hope there's something there.
You mentioned this role of apprentice, and you're a teacher to so many, but you also mentioned, right, Jyoti, one of your mentors in this lifetime. I'm curious how you find your teachers and what those relationships look like for you.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how I got where I am, and it is all because I was lucky enough to have people teach me. I don't know. I was born under a lucky star of amazing teachers. Even when I first went to acupuncture school, I got to study with Bob and Diane, who are this iconic, legendary, um, amazing older couple that just profound teachers. And it's truly like the entire reason why I'm here. What I've learned from them, what I've learned from the stones, and what I've learned from my students, what I've learned from my patients. Um, I think that instilled in me from a long, long time ago is this deep respect for teachers. I have such a deep respect for those that really pass on their knowledge, and I have such a deep respect for knowledge. I have such a deep respect for sacred teachings. That respect for like just respecting who comes before you, respecting your parent, respecting your grandparent, like staying in order, like respecting the order of things. That's so Buddhist, that's so Confucianist, that's so Taoist, that's so like Far East. It was so deeply instilled in them to respect the teacher. It might be from, I say past lives, it's just like other dimensions of my soul that are beyond like what's sitting here in front of you. But I think that all of the ways that I've been able to attract great teachers comes from that respect. Like there is this way that I feel that it's so sacred that I guess I've magnetized them through that sacredness.
Mhm.
It's been a blessing. I mean, on the material plane, my partner Caroline is like one of the most magical connector beings in the world. She finds everything for us. She's always finding and bringing things. She's just one of those magical beings that's so abundant in finding magical connections. And actually, a lot of my teachers I've met through her in the past 7 years. So that's one piece on the practical plane. Sometimes you need one of those people that's like the weaver of the web.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk more to her because that sounds a little bit like me.
Oh, are you like that?
I like to think of myself that way. Yeah,
That's awesome, Derek. That's such a cool superpower.
it's fun. We used to travel abroad, like living 3 months at a time in places, and it was always kind of a fun game to see like how quickly I can become sort of the center of the community. Right? If you only have 3 months, you got to make friends quick. If you want to have friends at all, you gotta find the people that know the people and get involved right away. And that was we had so many crazy synchronicities from doing that, right? Like all the houses that we get, are were through people saying, "Well, we have a house that needs someone to be in it," or things like that. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's a fun way to go through.
I don't even have eyes like that. Like that's cool to think about. Well, I should join the Chamber of Commerce and I should like volunteer at this garden and like do all that to find your way to meet everybody. That's pretty cool.
There's this idea that it's like you talked about the center node, right? Of in the where you're gonna have the land healing ceremony. I like to think of trying to find the people that are the center node of their web, because they're the ones who can facilitate even in manifestation, right? A lot of manifestations will come because a person helps you get that like physical realization of the thing. And so usually it's like a chain of relationships that allow your manifestations to flow through. So if you're aware of the nodes of the people that have a lot of branching connections, then you can sort of activate those manifestation pathways to some degree.
That you totally just described Caroline too. It's like everything we find that's magical and abundant comes through her at that level of like relationships. So that's really amazing. Um, you guys should get paid the most of anyone for doing it because it's so much magic coming through. Or you should be a real estate agent. You could just have so many clients right up front.
Well, I have a real estate agent friend who works the same way, and he's always telling me how great business is. So you're you're spot on.
That's cool, Derek.
Um, I'm curious about for this year, for this moment. I feel like different minerals, crystal stones raise their hand to be like, here's what the collective needs now, or here's what they've like we didn't even know about this stone to use until recently, or whatever. Are there any particular stones that are raising their hand recently to be like, okay, now it's time to use me more in your work?
In my own personal journey, there is, and in what I feel like is like where the whole collective is, there is as well. I will tell a little bit about the collective piece. What is so important right now, I think, is, you know, humanity is awakening, but it's just the tip of the school of fish. It's like the nose of the school of fish of all of humanity. Most of humanity is not in a place yet of even really witnessing the self or climbing that ladder of awakening. So the ones that are at the tip of the nose of the school of fish, they've already started to watch themselves. They've already started to say, I saw that voice come in. I saw that pattern happen again. They're just watching the self. But the next phase is that you have to open the heart. And the next phase is then you're really feeling empathy when people are fighting on Facebook, right? You're really putting yourself in someone else's shoes when they just were flipped you off in the car or something. And then the next stage after that is compassion, where you really actually see everybody, every human, even abusers, even central bankers, as little 3-year-old girls and boys that are scared. And that's kind of the heart of compassion, is that you understand that they're just scared little girls and boys, and that there's this like beautiful heart under that. And then from compassion, we raise up into a fuller flowering of the heart. And that would move into like causeless joy and causeless love and states of oneness and states of love. But where the tip of the school of fish is right now is at this, like, we have to begin to open the heart. That's where we are. It's all about the heart right now. And what I find, and I just taught a class about this last week, what I really find is that people want to be in their heart now, and they're having a hard time going into their heart because there is nervous system, there is anxiety, there is fear, and all those little distractions that keep us from being calm and being grounded, ultimately surrendering and ultimately being present, and then ultimately experiencing like the higher frequencies of the heart. So I think right where humanity, like where our consciousness really connects with stones right now, as far as like the collective, is how do we calm the heart? How do we feel safe enough to open the heart? Like, how do we feel safe enough to really begin to surrender? How do we feel safe enough in our body to let some of the traumas and PTSD like integrate back into presence so that we can experience the heart? So these stones, like rose quartz, and I'm really highlighting a lot hematite and hematoid rose quartz, which is a rose quartz with hematite in it. And dense stones that can really ground the heart, amazonite, smoky quartz, and really connecting with the heart. I was teaching in the class, like, really put your hands on the heart, put the stones on the chest, and put your hands on the heart, and let the weight of the stones and the steadfast energy of the stones. People, how they explain someone that's like always been there for them is they say, "You're my rock." Like, that steadfastness and that stability, we need that to be able to calm down, feel safe. We need that to be able to surrender into, so we can just experience our hearts. So I've been thinking a lot about heart stones, and then when you go even deeper, what happens when the body starts to relax, as you know, is that then some of the deeper things that are in the DNA or the Jing start to want to resolve, like old traumas or ancestral pain, or old heart pains, or extra dimensional pain. Like, there's all of these programs that occur. And when we go down even deeper into the heart, we start working with things like bixbyite and morganite, and the stones that go even deeper. Emerald is a wonderful stone for like, wow, some bigger things, like pain around my dad's death now is like coming up again. And letting the heart heal is where I feel like we are. Maybe it's, I want to know if people relate to that. Write it in the comments, because I don't know if I have my finger on the pulse correctly, but that's what I feel.
Yeah, thanks for sharing some actual specific stones and your process of like exploring, yeah, what stones for where. And you mentioned like deeper levels in DNA. Like, I know you've maybe talked about this in some of your courses, but like, can you explain more like the difference between healing something like the experience of a parent dying versus um, something epigenetic, or even from another lifetime or timeline? Like, how you would think about a type of stone to go at different levels, and what deeper levels means.
Yeah. So the ancient character for stone, like the ancient pictogram for that, shows like this flat surface. And it shows this thing dipping down into the flat surface. And then there's like this ball crystallizing under the flat surface. So what the pictogram is trying to say is a stone is something that sinks down into the deeper place and crystallizes down into the deeper place. I mean, that's the pictogram for stone. It's really cool. So you see that the things that really affect us, that we can't integrate in the moment, we can't be fully present for in the moment, we push those down into latency. The body does it in an instant and compartmentalizes the things that we can't fully experience, and it pushes them down. Sometimes we call that pushing it into latency. Sometimes we call it pushing it into the daimai. There's like this whole receptacle in our pelvis where we can push trauma, which is just anything that we couldn't fully experience in the moment. But because it's about that stuff, even if you look at the physical correlation to this, like heavy metals, they sink down into the DNA, like heavy toxins, they sink down into the DNA. So that's like the picture of a crystal, something that sinks down deep and settles in. And that's why those things, we have a hard time healing them. Many of those things like chronic disease, autoimmune disease, cancer, etc., like we're told by Western medicine that it's not curable. There's no cure for this. Like Western medicine can't even get down enough to that level to cure those things. My friend was just told her cancer is not curable. But so we need stones to go down into those levels, into those deep levels, to be able to resonate and exchange information with what is like deeply down and stored within us. And once those two things exchange information, then you're back to the world of all possibility. Things can come up and heal. They can come out of latency. They can integrate. Presence heals everything. Actually, presence is the thing that heals anything from any timeline in any moment. You just have to be in the moment. Presence will always heal anything. The thing is that when we, come into this lifetime, we call it cosmic Jing sometimes, or ancestral Jing. These are basically just like, what did we come in with? We came in with all this stuff from our parents and our ancestors. We come in with all of that stuff. That's what we call the ancestral Jing. And then we also come in with this load of programs related to where we're born, the time that we're born, what was going on in the stars and planets when we're born, what was going on with the sun when we're born, what was going on with the collective when we're born. And we upload all of that in the moment that we're born as well. And it becomes like our own unique ego self identity. Both of those are in the Jing though, Derek. So you're kind of like, what's the difference between like ancestral, like deep other past lifetime things and more, programs and cosmic programs and things? Those are all really deeply stored. It's the deepest level. We call it the Yuan level, and only stones go to this deep level. The plants, there's some plants that go to this deep level, master plants included, go to this deep level. Mostly plants stay at the more middle level and superficial level of healing. And stones are the ones that go down to this deep level and resonate and pull things out. I think your question was kind of like, what's the difference between healing at one level and healing at another level, at a deeper level?
Well, I guess what you've said is that both. So I was trying to make things that are two different levels, but really, they're considered at the deepest level. Does something like cancer have a stone medicine application?
Yeah.
Or is there stones that can help with cancer?
Yes. And there are also herbs that can help with cancer and acupuncture and all of these things. Like those things can get down to the deepest level. It's almost like saying stones just do it better. It's like saying you want to use the right tool for the job. You want to use stones to get down to the deeper level, but there's a problem. And the problem is the Western mind doesn't really believe in stones as much. So sometimes you run into problems with like belief, like the practitioner doesn't really believe, and they are affecting the experiment. Or the patient doesn't really believe, so that kind of affects the experiment. But yes, there are stones that work with cancer, and you can put something into latency. Like you can say, someone has cancer, let's slow it down so we can buy more time. You can push it into latency to wait in the closet. You can use stones to pull things out of latency and like say, let's integrate and like join the larger system again. You can use stones to say, let's pull out ancestral trauma, or you're starting to feel these tinglings on the outside of something that hit you after your mother's death that kind of like flung onto you. So you can use stones to kind of like pull that out of the closet or latency. And these are pretty deep processes. And one thing also about stones is that they do, in general, they take a little more time. Like we know that if you want to work at that deep of a level, you want to give yourself like 3 months to 2 years even to be working with one stone.
And we're back to the patience part of it again.
Yeah.
My wife and I have recently completed our QHHT training and quantum healing hypnosis Dolores Cannon's technique. And they found like other people have, like Louise Hay outlined in her book, a lot of the root causes, like the emotional pattern root cause of a disease, like a lot of cancer comes from different types of anger, for example. And in QHHT, the higher self will say, like, you've learned that lesson. I can resolve this disease situation for you right now because you've got the lesson or you haven't got the lesson. Um, does working with stones help you? You said being present heals pretty much everything. Is being present with the lessons you're supposed to learn that led to the disease state? Is that's kind of what's happening?
I think so, because I think that is soul level healing. It's like the soul is on its own alchemical journey. And honestly, if I had to say if I had to say one thing that stones do, it is walking with you in the process of soul evolution. Because the soul is evolving, and we get to these places where we have to deepen or let go or come to a crossroads or see the lesson, right? Like, what is this cancer really about? I'm just watching my friend go through this, and like, she's treating herself perfectly on the physical, but there's soul things that need to be let go of and really shifted in this lifetime for her to be able to make the soul evolution that the cancer is calling for, right? That's what I feel like stones really, they will meet you in those moments of soul evolution and show you the way. They'll be there at the crossroads. They'll show you the questions to ask. If you invite them in, they'll start coming to you in your treatments, in your dreams, in your meditations, in your walks in the woods. And they're the ones who have kind of like the compass for the soul. Like, this is the lesson. These are your choices. This is what you came here to achieve, because destiny also lives at the level of the Jing or the Yuan level. Our destiny lives at that deep level within. And I feel like stones are always pointing us to those deepest, what we're calling kind of soul lessons.
What that has me thinking about is just the age of stones and how much longevity they have in linear time. And to have, imagine if we lived really, really long, like how much wisdom and experience we would have to like patiently be that compass point. Is that kind of how you think of the consciousness of crystals and stones?
Yeah, I think you said it really well. And I think that the teachers of the old ways and people that really, in all kinds of traditions, really observe nature would say it like that. I mean, it's the stone people have great, great wisdom. They are the elders of the natural world. Um, and like, clearly the record keepers, like, we would have no idea where the hell we were if it weren't for stones. Like, everything about our history in this place is written in stone. Everything that we've learned about our history is there because the stones were able to make it permanent and hold the records. So there
Like
is,
with megalithic sites and
yeah.
sacred sites and stuff?
Yeah, so it's deep wisdom, and I love how you call it like a compass point too. It's like, here's where the information is, you know? It's awesome. The stone people.
I have a friend, just slightly switch topics. He said, I think I have this entity that's been with me for a long time and it will knock me into like a negative thought loop or it'll just have me feeling really terrible and I won't be able to be effective for a day or more. And he's like had people try to raise his frequency or clear entities or something. I know you have maybe even a course about clearing entities. Could you talk about uh, what what is your concept of what an entity is and how you might think about transmuting something like that
Yeah,
with stones and crystals?
sure. I think an entity is a spectrum. So, like, on one end of the spectrum, it can be any pocket of energy. And like, I could pick up a pocket of energy walking through the co-op. Somebody was in an argument. I walk through that aisle. I can pick up that pocket of energy. So it can be a pocket of energy left in a room, all the way out, all the way through the spectrum, where it coalesces more and becomes more and more material and coalesce, all the way up to what we think of as, you know, it can go all the way up to what we think of as demons and, you know, negative entities that are conscious, metaphysical, negative entities. So I feel like it's a whole spectrum. And the way that stones and crystals have a resonance with that is that stones are very dense, so they have a lot of form to them. They're very dense. They're more dense than anything in nature. And what the Tao kind of teaches us is that if you go to the depth of density or the depth of form, what you find is an opening to the formless. It's kind of like going to the bottom of the ocean where it's so dense and so deep and so heavy and so black that there's these little portals to these cosmic worlds where the octopus and the dolphins and the whales are all like moving through these portals, It's like when you go to the depth of density, there is an opening to formlessness. When you go to the depth of formlessness, there'll be an opening to form. So it's like that simple thing that, everything contains its opposite within, and stones have that. So if you look at all of nature, they're the most dense. So what we know about stones is that creates a portal to formlessness. So they're the most physical, but they're also the most metaphysical. They become these doors to other dimensional energy. And we know that because they conduct energy here, they conduct energy on the electromagnetic spectrum, but they're also conducting quantum energy or scalar energy, or what I call non-binary energy, because it's not ones and zeros. Like they literally conduct prayer, mantra, sound, frequency that is not binary. What's coming from our heart. That's actually what silica does. It is not just bound to moving binary information. It moves non-binary information. So it's like we know stones are conducting energy. We know they're this portal between form and formlessness. So what we can do with energy or pockets of energy is we can invite them to gently transmute back to the oneness or gently transmute back to love through the portal of the stone. And we use stones as kind of these conductors between this world and other worlds. You have to just kind of use your intention and a lot of love to like point the entity to like, hey, if you're ready to gently transmute back to love or just back to a higher frequency, this is a way. This is like a doorway. And there's certain ways that we can set up the stones on the body that go a long way back that open this whole field in the body so that entities can transmute through that field. Grids do this. Grids, when we work with a grid, the thing about grids is that they permeate dimensions. So if you're working with a grid, then you're not just working with this dimension, you're interacting with other dimensions as well. So that's how I feel like they relate.
Have you ever you said if an entity is ready to transmute back to love, I suppose then there would be entities that wouldn't be ready because they're enjoying the situation as it is. Have you had that show up?
Sure. I've had a lot of entity work in my life. I've had a lot of people not resolve on that first treatment or something. I've had a lot of people resolve on that first treatment though. Like we really have powerful technologies within stones and grids and healing for this. But yeah, if there's attachment either way, if the person is attached to it or the entity is attached strongly, it can be a journey.
Yeah, I suppose if the person is getting some benefit of it, even if they're not wanting other parts, right? They might be like keeping them in a comfort zone or something.
Yeah, like it's a cool line of questioning to ask them, like, what is good about this for you? Like, how is it protecting you? How is it keeping you safe? How is it keeping you from, getting to stay how you have been? Like, what is it keeping you from having to have pain in certain ways? And just doing an inventory of the way that we're attached to the entity, doing an inventory of that is just bringing it to consciousness is enough sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like the people that I think many of us know that they're like they've always been on a healing journey. You're like, are you still working on that? And it's like, what would they have to talk about if they weren't on a healing journey?
Yeah. Yeah, they'd have to change completely, get into Legos or something.
Oh, that's funny. Um, Here's something interesting. In the shaman that I apprentice under has directed people to wear gems on their fingers, and I haven't got around to doing it, but they have to be at least 2 carats, completely clear, and you have to have 2 on each hand. And it's like a special thing to allow the energy to flow in and out of the hands. And I was just curious because the only other place I've encountered that is in like Vedic astrology. They like have different gemstone rings prescriptions. Have you encountered anything like specific ring gemstone uses on the hands?
The tradition that I have worked with out of India, my avatar teachers are in India, and their lineage is the Dattatreya lineage. And there are certain avatars on Earth. Some have taken samadhi here. They're all working on raising the level of consciousness of humanity. And it is common in that lineage for them to, the avatars to produce a ring out of nothing, or give someone, produce jewels in their hands, or to give somebody a ring to wear, or to, put a piece of their soul or a piece of consciousness or a piece of their consciousness into a ring or into a Shiva lingam or into like a soul object of that type. So they use crystals a lot just to transfer energy. Like they should be clear, right? Like gem
Hmm.
quality transparent. And that
Yep.
is totally because it's conducting energy. Like in Vedic astrology, it's like these crystals are what are grounding all the frequencies coming from these planets or these planes. So the more flawless it is, the more it's able to like channel wider amounts of information and not edit it, and just really clean amounts of information can come through, or codes, you could say.
Hmm.
That's
I remember, yeah, an autobiography of a yogi. He meets a guy who's manifesting gems in his palm.
Mhm.
Um, when you say avatar teachers, you have avatar teachers over there. It means they're like in a physical form, and like you can go and sit with them. Is that what you mean?
To me, that means, and this obviously could mean a lot of things to different people, but to me, that means if it's like the full divine in a human body, like the divine is incarnate on earth in this body. That's what that means to me. And some are alive. The ones that I work with particularly are actually a husband and wife, which are actually one soul and two bodies, and they are the divine in these two bodies.
Whoa! And you've gone to be with them in physically?
Well, they have millions of followers in India. So I have been there and spent a month at the temple, and it was like the most surreal, magical thing, one of the most surreal and magical things in my life. But I didn't get to like meet them or anything. But I got to get pretty close because there was about 1,000 people in that temple program.
Oh wow!
Yes.
What was just one of your takeaways from that experience?
I've been on that path for a long time. So everything that I teach about consciousness or share about consciousness and human consciousness, I learned from them. Everything that I learned about the self and witnessing the self and how the self functions and how we are awakening and the stages of awakening. I went through awakening process myself in 2011, 2012. And this is really rare. I went through the process actually understanding the process. And the reason that I could do that is because of them, because they were actually teaching us everything that was happening to us as it happens. Whereas most people, when they awaken, it's just like, don't, and they're not really sure the words or exactly what happened. But they very specifically taught us like every step of what was happening to us. So I actually love talking about awakening, and it's all though from them. It's all from their teachings. And that's it's honestly, if you took all the things that I learned and measured it on a truth meter, I think that what they have taught me would ring as the highest levels of truth.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's so interesting because I was kind of curious because you're known as a stone medicine person, like that's your thing. Um, but seems like a very important part of your work and your knowledge as well. I'm curious, are there any other like things that are a big part of your walk that you're not really public about, or that you're um, like exploring and weaving in, or yeah, just like the side of Sarah that most of your students or people that find you online might not know about you?
Well, Caroline, my partner too, she's always saying, "You need to talk about a lot more than stones." Like, "What? You just keep talking about stones." She's like, "You have all this other stuff to talk about." Um, so thank you for asking that, Derek. So art is really important to me. Right. Art has always been really important to me, which is the way that I know thyself is through art. And that journey of intimacy with the self is, that is the thing that if I if I did die tomorrow or I got a diagnosis or something, like that would be the thing that would be the longing in me. That would be the ache in me. That's the thing that could cause me to become a ghost or become attached here, because I feel like I would be like, I wanted to do more art. I needed to do more art. I needed to be deeper in that process here. So that is really important to me. That's kind of at the center of my heart. And I, since 2013, just another thing, which I think you're on the same page of this, is that I got to go down the rabbit hole in so many ways of like the deception and the weird parts of this world, that, the battle between dark and light, the conspiracy theories, which are not conspiracy theories, like that. That is a whole thing that I have like understood and dealt with for a long time, and often have felt very alone about knowing about a lot of those things, and still have a hard time getting on the same page with people. But after I had my awakening in India around 2011, I just saw it all, and a lot of things that people still don't see. So I have kind of a walk with all of that, all of those rabbit holes, and I feel like now, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like now everything that we call it a conspiracy theory is now just like the truth. Like people just know, like it's just on, like,
It's funny how that happens.
yeah, it used to
And
not
I
be like, I just watched Tucker Carlson interview a guy just today, about the Fed and central banking and, like the Ponzi scheme of money and everything. It's just like normal now to know that stuff. And it used to just be David Icke hanging out. Remember? I feel like you get this somehow.
yeah, and I have a new relationship with any of that conspiracy stuff, which is basically it's like I almost just ignore all of it, to some degree, because it's like you guys go do your thing and I'm just gonna do my thing. And if ultimately like we're all one, then I just have to have compassion. Actually, I had a dream where I was talking with a central banker or someone, and I was like, why are you extorting people? Like, why are you making this so hard for people? Don't like you seem like a nice person, but you're really just like you have the system that's set up to confuse and hurt people. And they're like, well, we don't see it that way.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, like it's just different. Like, okay, like we're not in conflict. It's just like you just gonna do your thing.
That's so,
And I was like, that's so interesting.
what a cool dream. It's like there is no good, bad, right, or wrong. That's one of the things about my Taoist teacher too, the 88th generation priest, Jeffrey Yuen, who's truly a Taoist master. It's like he is so not polarized to the point of he doesn't even have opinions. He doesn't even think anything is good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just, standing in the center of things. Like, and I think it's a good sign of growth that you are, and me too. I feel like I just look at the world now like it's the algorithm and the social media is like just trying to like shape the mind and control the mind of what you will think and believe. And it's just becoming more and more like not paying attention to this outer deception so much. I mean, it's forcing us to just go inward and have our own gnosis, because now it's like, who knows what is what anymore.
Right. Yeah. There was even a senator who like tweeted out the fake resignation letter from the chairman of the Fed. He's like, oh, look, this happened. And then they're like, dude, that's fake. And he's like, oops, that's embarrassing. But yeah, so anybody can get confused with a fake document or something.
Totally. We're getting less hooked and snagged by that. But consciousnss would be the biggest like side thing. That's my biggest side hustle besides stone medicine.
Consciousness is my biggest side hustle. Yeah, how do you, I know you run your school and you have your crystal shop, and I'm just curious like how you conduct your day-to-day life with the sort of higher dimensional consciousness perspective that you have.
I think I have become more normal as I've grown up. I think before I had more spiritual personalities, which that's just part of the self. We all have like 35 different spiritual personalities. We have 35 different healer personalities. We have we have tons of personality. The self is just playing a lot of roles and having a lot of personalities. And I do keep becoming more normal. And I am not striving so much. I used to be like, I have to activate this certain thing. I have to do another ceremony. I have to make sure I do this other class. I have to get to the top of this mountain and listen to this thing. I have to, I don't strive as much anymore. It's so funny because my friends and acquaintances, they're always like, I just hear this all the time. They're like, we just see you as this like magical being who's always over here sitting at a fire and like, like sparking rocks together in some crazy mystical meditation. And they always think that I'm like this doing all these magical things. And I can't really tell you how normal I mean, my day-to-day life, I think, has become more and more normal, which I feel like is a good sign. And yeah, that's a good, I feel like I went through this big process where I stopped trying to have a higher level of consciousness. I stopped trying to awaken, and that's just grace. And sometimes it feels like a existential crisis. And it's also, my avatar teacher has said, like, when you stop trying, that's when you're truly awakened. So I feel like maybe that's right. I've just become a lot more normal, Derek, and I've stopped trying so much, I think. And I have been honestly more like, I just want to point towards joy. I want to do things that are really joyful for me. Like, I really want to just like soak in eros and joy and like what's juicy for me, which always brings me back to my art a lot too. So I've been just kind of like, maybe the best service is joy, and kind of walking that way lately.
I've learned a lot about art from my wife is an artist, and lately she's been doing a lot of sewing. She got a sewing machine a couple years ago and like didn't touch it. It was a present. She didn't touch it for months. I was like, "Are you going to use it?" And then she was like all in on sewing. And she's like, "I through my sewing am healing so much for myself, for the collective. I'm like transmuting like all the people I interact with through the day. I'm like sewing it. I'm like, you know, and I don't fully understand because it's not my experience, but I'm like, oh wow, this could be some of the most important work you're doing, sitting up there and messing around, putting two shirts together to make one. And it's cool to think about, um, that it's a lesson for me to, I guess, to like you said, a medicine, something to walk with is like the real important work that we might be doing might not be any work at all. It it could just be like the thing that we are finding joy in the moment. Um, I'm just curious about your art. Like what art you're feeling like you would be love or you're doing right now, or you'd love to be doing more of.
My I just love what you just said. My divination mentor, I have another divination mentor who's also a writer, and she uses the craft as a path, and like you can tell, like her little hairs are raising up on her body, like because if the greatest contribution that we can make is to help others raise their level of consciousness, which I believe that because I believe when the consciousness of humanity rises, all of the problems in this place automatically disappear. And if the greatest
Mhm.
contribution we can make is help others raise their level of consciousness, then the way that we do that the most, I think, is that we realize that we are the magical crystal. And if we're sitting like doing sewing and then our vibration, our frequency goes up, then that crystal is like radiating frequency. That's a transmission. That's different than knowledge or teaching, or like that's the highest vibration that you can get is the transmission of consciousness. So I think that's what my teacher means by the craft is the path. And I think that's what your wife means, who sounds very cool. And another thing about Jyoti is she went up to visit the Kogi people who are, you probably know the Kogi, Derek. They're just the indigenous people up in the mountains of Colombia that are like truly untouched by this culture and civilization and living
Mm.
as like star beings in the mountains of Colombia. And the women, we got to see a video of the women up there, and they are, first of all, when you see them, it's like they're one with the earth. They look like truly the children of Mother Earth, like direct children of Mother Earth. And this one woman was sitting there weaving, and she's this old woman, and she just weaves all day, and her whole thing is just sitting there and weaving. And she explains that when she's weaving, she's creating the timelines for the earth and where the earth will go. But she's like, it's literal. She's literally weaving the timeline. She says she can undo the past and weave the future through the weaving that she's doing with her hands. And it's literal for her. Like that's the craft is the path. That's amazing. Oh, and my art, I like writing. I am writing some special things. So I really love doing my comics and graphic novel stuff, and I love painting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you have, my son is really into graphic novels.
really?
He's reads them all day, creates them. So that's super cool to hear.
Oh, cool. Does he draw with paper and pencil, or did you get him like a pad or something to do it with?
Currently, just pencil.
Cool.
I think he would like to have an iPad. He's 8, so we're gonna wait a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we could swap cartoons,
Hey,
illustrations.
there's nothing better than creating your own little world where anything can happen in the cartoons. It's the best.
It's funny. He created a superhero cartoon featuring our baby as the main character, and then he went as one of the characters in his strip for Halloween, which was pretty cool to see. I was like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm Brother Boy, obviously."
That is so cute. Everyone's gonna want to see those works now. Brother Boys comics.
Gosh, what else haven't I asked you about? Anything you want to touch on that we haven't brought up?
I mentioned something about planetary nervous system, stones. I don't know if you want to talk about that. We can if you want. I don't have anything like in particular to say about it.
Well, I was just thinking about, like, there's a pole shift happening theoretically, and there's this data that the Earth's core reversed direction. I think last year, the direction reversed, and then we're getting all these high energy inputs, right? Cosmically speaking, coronal mass ejections, high energy pockets from the galactic center. The electromagnetics are, the Schumann resonance, all these things are happening. And then we have like the stones, the earth itself. And I was just curious, like, your thought about the relationship with the actual matter here, and how, if we think of the earth as a being, and the, I was also, right before we jumped on, I was also going to ask you about the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. And I feel like, right, crystal skulls, they represent like the brains in the rock, sort of. Yeah, so I'm just curious, maybe you could just tie all those little threads together and come up with something coherent.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think of is the relationship between the earth and the sun, and the relationship with other cosmic forces that interact with the earth. And I love thinking about that because I feel like the crystals in the earth are capacitors and are like coiled springs that store these incoming codes need to come into the stones in the earth. That's exactly what they do. They absorb, store, and transmit energy, frequency, and vibration. And I feel like those big stones in the earth have been capturing cosmic forces for so long. And I do feel like they are capacitors, and they're all set to be unleashed at a certain time, because we know that crystals keep time. Crystals can actually control time. We can make time reverse. We can make time go forward. We can trap something in time. We can untrap something in time. That relationship between crystals and time is like a big kind of rabbit hole to go down, or medicine question to walk with. But these crystals in the earth they are like coiled springs, and the most powerful energy is potential energy. It's the most powerful energy. And I feel like they're set to time release. And of course, it's going to be massive information time released that will come out at the right moments for shifts in humanity. I think that these cosmic and also other elemental forces are, downloading codes into the earth all the time. And there's just this great, perfect timing to it. It is exactly correlative. I mean, it is exactly mirrors the coiled spring in our own body, which is the kundalini and the DNA, which those codons, codon means code on. So all the codons in our DNA are like that. They're like capacitors. They have stored energy in them that is set to go off at a certain time for evolution. It's all for evolution. And somehow the Taoists understood all of this, and the 8 trigrams like store all this information, which is why the gene keys and the, human design is all really resonating with people and feeling relevant, because that's all about evolution. It's all about how this species is going to evolve based on what is stored in our DNA. And the exact same thing is going on with the earth. So the earth's DNA is the crystals, and our DNA is the crystals, that those are perfect mirrors of each other. And like, in a greater sense, it can all be simplified. And, this creation is built on cycles. Everything's happening in cycles. Everything in this creation is happening in cycles. Always remember that. And another thing is that it's all just creation, maintenance, destruction. Creation, maintenance, destruction. Those are just the 3 phases that are always happening if you really far back. Everything's just create, maintain, destroy, create, maintain, destroy. There's nothing personal about it. There's nothing good, bad, right, or wrong. Humanity will evolve within that. Our species will evolve, and we have our own destiny. As far as like the way that it's going to happen, where we're headed, I don't know. And I love not knowing, but I do feel like the crystals in the earth are storing a lot of information.
And I've heard people talking about we're going to become crystalline beings, like circulating light with a crystalline heart. What does that even mean? Do you know?
I was just saying to people that, like, if you were told you're going to walk into this room and you're going to feel a lot of light, energy is going to be a lot of light. Imagine hearing that. And then imagine hearing this. You're going to walk into this room and you're going to feel a lot of crystalline light. Like, there's going to be this energy of crystalline light. How does it feel different? The crystalline light, when you hear that, it feels so refined. It feels so pure. It feels like the light would be of a higher frequency, like the sound of angels singing. There's something really refined about that. And you feel this elevation, like the elevation of frequency. So to bring up Caroline again, she was just in here before we hit play, which is maybe she left her DNA in the room a little bit. But what she helps people with and talks about is the awakening of the heart as well, in relationship to the Christ consciousness. So Mary Magdalene, Yeshua, all beings of Christ consciousness, and how we awaken. And a lot of what she works with and helps people kind of identify is the crystalline light in the heart. And that as we bring in a crystalline light in the heart, we're raising the frequency of the heart. And the Christ consciousness is the awakened heart. So I don't know if we will move from carbon-based beings to silica-based beings. But perhaps what that means or could mean is just higher frequency and elevated, more refined frequency, because crystals contain order, so they have like a closer relationship with the 5th dimension, the singularities, higher frequency dimensions.
Yes, exciting stuff. Yeah, that's a good place to wrap, I think.
Sounds fun. Sounds good.
Where can people find you should you wish to be found?
If I wish to be found, you can meet me at upperclarity.com is my website, upperclarity.com.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Sarah, always a pleasure. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
It's nice. Thanks for inviting me back, because it was nice to talk to you.